Hey everybody, welcome back. Special shout out to my homies in quarantine. Hope you guys are doing okay. Last video we left off, we finished the front part of this, Properties of Exponents Advanced. We did the first 4 problems. So we're going to dive into the second page today, or excuse me, in this video. We'll start with number 5 here, one step at a time, and if some of these are going to take a little bit of space. So if you ever feel like you're running out of space, you don't have to do your work on this worksheet. If you want to use a separate sheet of paper, you can always do that. Just make sure that you include it when you turn in your assignment. Also, if you're going to be doing a separate sheet of paper for like most of them, if you keep them in order, it will help me grade it better. All right, let's jump in. Okay, number 5. So remember, we have this kind of order that we've been using. It's not super strict, but it will also help us save work. So step 1 of that process that you can see here on the front is to put a 1 on everything that doesn't have an exponent. That will help us to avoid making mistakes. So we're going to do that. Let's zoom in here a little bit. All right. Step 2 is we're going to cancel anything that's to the 0 power, which we don't see here. Step 3 is to simplify within the smallest parentheses. So if we look at this guy down here, there's nothing that we can do inside the parentheses. There's no product or quotient property we can use. So then the next step is to just clear the parentheses, get rid of them. These guys up here can't really interact with these guys until the parentheses are gone. So we're going to use our power property. I'm going to multiply 4 by this exponent and 4 by this exponent. So on top we have 2 to the 1, x to the 1, y to the 2, times y to the negative 2, all over y to the 4, 4 times 1, and x to the 12, 3 times 4 is 12. And then all of that is raised to the 3 power. Okay, so if you notice on the directions, step 5 is to repeat steps 3 and 4. So you kind of have to keep going. Right now we're at the next level here with the next set of parentheses, and we got to simplify in here first before we want to take this 3 power. We could actually multiply all the exponents by 3 right now, but that's going to be more work than we need to do. Let's simplify it first. That will help. So I like to look at the numerator. We got y's and y's. So I got 2 to the 1, that doesn't change. Got x to the 1, that doesn't change. But I'm going to use the product property here. 2 plus negative 2 is 0. So that's actually y to the 0, which is 1. So I don't really even need to write anything. When I combine those two, I get y to the 0, which is a 1. Okay, on the bottom, we have y to the 4th and x to the 12th. Okay, now we're going to do the quotient property if we can. Now that the numerator is all set and the denominator is all set, we'll look for anything we can do this way. So we got an x in the top and an x in the bottom. We're going to apply the quotient property, and the quotient property says when you have x's over x's, we're going to subtract the exponents. So 1 minus 12 will be negative 11. Now anytime you use the quotient property, the variable lands on top of the fraction. Okay? We might move it later, like in this case we're going to have to move that variable later, but initially when we subtract the exponents, the variable is going to go on top. Okay? Alright, so now we got everything simplified within the parentheses. We've done everything we can inside. Now we're going to multiply the exponents and apply our power properties. I'm going to draw an arrow because my work is going to go up here now. So we got 2 to the 3, x to the negative 33, and then y to the 12th. Again, we're multiplying exponents here. So be careful, we don't want 3 to the 2, or 3 times 2, that would give us 6. We're not multiplying this number, which we call a coefficient. We're multiplying the exponent. 2 to the 3 is actually 8. All right, so now we're going to move the anything that has a negative exponent. So notice all the exponents changed a lot as we went through this process. But now the exponents are kind of settled. We're not going to multiply them or subtract them or add them anymore. So anything that still has a negative exponent, we're going to push down to the bottom or move up to the top depending on where it is. And so 2 to the 3rd is left, that's 8. X to the negative 33 goes down here, and then there's a y to the 12th. Okay, these are some multi-step problems you got going on here, so we want to make sure that we did that right. Check our answers, and you know, it's possible that we made a mistake, so let's look. Okay, that looks pretty similar to what we have The only difference is the order of the variables. That's okay because multiplication is commutative, meaning the order that we write those two bottom pieces in doesn't really matter. It's actually typical to write in alphabetical order, so this is maybe even a little bit better than what it says in the answer key, but either are correct and equivalent. Okay, let's do number 6. So again, anything that doesn't already have an exponent gets a 1. All right, now we look for our 0 powers, a to the 0 power, that's a 1. Don't cross out the 2. Okay, then we'll look for the innermost parentheses. Well, we have two sets here. So anything inside these parentheses that can get, that we can use the product property on or the quotient property on to simplify, we're going to do. But there's nothing to do in here. Any simplification we can do in here, we're going to do, but there's nothing to do because we have just one set of A's and one set of B's. So the next step is to remove these parentheses by multiplying the exponents. Okay, so 1 times 3 is 3, so 2 to the third. 3 times 4 is 12, so b to the 12. Negative 3 times negative 1 is positive 3. And then negative 3 times 3 is negative 9. Okay, so now we have this fraction, and before we start using the quotient property, I would probably simplify the numerator first. Because notice we got b's in different places and all kinds of stuff here. So let's combine the b's on the top. Now I say combine, and that's kind of tricky. There's a phrase, combine like terms, that's very specific to math that really means adding and subtracting. So in this case, we're actually not combining like terms, even though it looks like these are like terms. We're applying the product property. So we got the 2 to the third power, we got the a to the third power, and then we're going to add these two exponents to using the product property. So we have b to the 12 plus negative 9. That's b to the third. Okay, on the bottom, 2 to the 1, b to the 1, a to the 4. Okay. Now we could, if we wanted to, turn these 2's to powers into regular numbers, like this is 8 and this is 2. But we could also just apply the properties like we would normally do. So like, for example, on the 2, we could just use the quotient property. So 2 and 2, we're going to subtract the 3 from the 1 from the 3. So 3 minus 1 is 2. So I have 2 to the 2 on top, which is 4. If you think about it, 8 over 2 is 4. All right, let's do the a's. So we got 3 minus 4, right? A's over a's. So subtract the exponents. Remember, whenever we use the quotient property, the variable lands on top. And then we have b to the 3 minus 1. Okay. So from here, I'm going to move all the exponents have stopped changing. We've multiplied, we've subtracted, we've added. They're not going to change anymore. We're just going to now move anything that has a negative exponent. So I guess that will change it, but like the number values aren't changing anymore. Okay. So now we have 2 to the 2, that's a 4. We'll make that a 4. We got b squared, we got a to the 1. So there's our final answer. 4b squared over a. Check. All right. Number 7. Let's start with our powers of 1. So 2 to the 1 power, 2 to the 1 power, 2 to the 1 power. Okay. Anything that has a 0 exponent, we're going to get rid of. That's a 1. Okay, we're going to look for our innermost parentheses. That's this guy. See if there's anything we can do inside there, any simplification we can do. There's not, because we don't have multiple y's and multiple x's, or multiple numbers. So the next step then is to just clear out this parenthesis by multiplying the exponents. So that's the power property. So the top is not going to change. Let me write that out real quick. Okay, this guy down here, this piece, is now going to be 2 to the negative 3, right? 1 times negative 3. X to the positive 12, because negative 3 times negative 4 is positive 12. And then y to the negative 12. That's this piece. Okay, we got 2 to the 1, we got x to the negative 4, we got y to the negative 1. So I'm just copying the rest of it. So just one step at a time. If you do try to do too many steps at a time, you are going to make a mistake, and then you have to go back and look at it again. So you guys are smart, and you can do a lot of things in your head. That's really good. But on problems like this, when we have multiple steps, if you try to hold it all in your head, you lose information. You just can't hold it all anymore. So the best scenario here is to go slowly, methodically, step by step, so that you don't make mistakes. All right, so from here, we need to simplify everything. Now we could do the quotient rule first or the product rule first. My preference is to always get, the numerators and denominators set and then do the quotient property. So I'm going to simplify the denominator. On the top, I still have 2 to the 1, x to the negative 2. On the bottom, I got 2's and 2's, so that I'm going to add the exponents there. That'll be 2 to the negative 2. I have x's and x's, so we're just adding the exponents here. That's going to give me x to the 8th. Okay, y's and y's, that's going to give me y to the negative 13. Okay, now from here, I can use the quotient property. So since I have 2's and 2's, I'll just subtract the exponents. 1 minus negative 2 is like 1 plus 2. So we're subtracting here, but I'm subtracting a negative 2. So 1 just off to the side here. 1 minus negative 2 is 1 plus 2. Okay, so that's 2 to the 3rd power. Okay, then we have our x's. We have a negative 2 minus 8. That's negative 10. And we have a y to the 13, to the negative 13, excuse me, that's still on the bottom. Okay, so we applied our quotient property. So now the variable, or excuse me, the exponents, they've been multiplied, they've been added, they've been subtracted, right? The number values aren't going to change anymore. So now that everything's kind of settled a little bit, we'll now move anything that has a negative power. So x to the negative 10 is going to go downstairs and become an x to the positive 10. Y to the negative 13 is going to come upstairs and become a y to the positive 13. Okay, 2 to the 3rd power is going to be 8, so we got 8y to the 13 over 10, x to the 10th. All right, we'll cross our fingers, hope we did all our steps right. Looks good. Okay, moving on. Number 8. Let's give them everything 1s that doesn't already have an exponent. Okay. Now we're going to look for the 0 powers. Okay. Then we look inside the parentheses to see what we can simplify. So nothing on the top level. I can do the x's and do the y's, but since there's multiple x's here, I'm going to simplify the denominator first. So on the top of the fraction, that's fine, that's not going to change. On the bottom, I have a 2 to the 1 and a 2 to the 1. So I'm going to add the exponents to get 2 to the 2. I also have x's here, so negative 1 and 4, I'm going to add those together. 4 plus negative 1 is 3, so x to the 3. I got y to the negative 2, all to the negative 2 power. Okay, so now we're going to do the quotient property. So we have x's over x's, we have y's over y's. So let's do that. We only have one set of numbers though, so we don't have to worry about the 2's. We've got 2 to the 2 on the bottom. Sorry, 2 to the 2. So let's do the x's. 3 minus 3 is 0. So I have x to the 0 on top. But remember, that's just 1. So I don't really need that. I could put a 1 there as like a placeholder, but if there's anything left on top, we don't really need that 1. Let's do the y's. Okay, so we have y to the 3 minus negative 2. So we're subtracting the exponents, but one of them's already negative. So when you do 3 minus negative 2, that's the same as 3 plus 2. That's y to the 5th. And then we have all of that to the negative 2 power. Okay, now that the fraction is all simplified, we're going to take everything to the negative 2 power. So everything inside the parentheses is good. We simplified the fraction. Now we don't have to multiply so many things by negative 2. Imagine if we, from the beginning of the problem, multiplied every power by negative 2. We could have done that, but it would have been a lot more multiplication than is really necessary. So we're going to multiply these exponents now, y to the negative 10. We're going to multiply these exponents now, 2 to the negative 4. And now that the exponents have, changed values as much as they're going to change, they multiplied, they subtracted, they added, they're not really changing anymore. Now we can move them to make them positive. So 2 to the positive 4 on the top, this guy goes up, y to the negative 10 goes down, and this is 16, 2 to the 4th is 16, 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, over y to the 10th. Okay, then we cross our fingers and pray to the math gods that we got it right. Thank goodness. We're doing good. All right, number 9 is kind of a beast, so we're probably going to need some extra paper, and that's okay. You're always welcome to do your work on a separate sheet of paper. That's totally fine. I just need it to be organized so that when you turn it in, I can see what you're doing. So if you have extra stuff, you want to tack on the end, that's great. Just make sure the problems are in order as much as possible. Okay, so 9 is going to be kind of a beast, but there's this old saying, how do you eat an elephant? And it's like kind of a riddle, I guess. And the answer is 1 bite at a time. So this is our elephant, right? This is a huge thing to digest. All we got to do is we just got to do it 1 step at a time. Start from the most inside thing, the most inner parentheses, and don't try to do too much at the same time. Okay, that would be my recommendation. So if a lot of people were like multiplying these exponents without combining, without using the product property in between, and they got tons of terms all floating around. So this is how I would do it. Again, everything that doesn't have an exponent gets a 1. All right, any 0 exponents, we change to a 1. Okay, now we're going to go to our innermost set of parentheses, which is this guy. Okay, if there's anything we can simplify inside, let's do that first before we start multiplying by 4. Now you could multiply all the exponents by 4, but that's more multiplication than you need to do, because look, we got m's that can be put together, we got p's that can be put together. So let's simplify within the parentheses first. Okay, so inside the parentheses, the innermost set, this set right here, we have a 2, that's the only number. We have an m and an m, so add the exponents, that's m to the 6th. We have some p's. We got a 6 and we got a 5, that's p to the 11th, and we got some q's. Okay, now this is a suggestion that one of our students had today that I thought was really good. They said, I'm just going to focus on just this inner parentheses right now, so I'm not going to bother writing everything else out yet, but when I finish just this piece, I'll go back and kind of put it together. So right now we're just focusing on just this stuff right here, and we're ignoring everything else. We're just taking it 1 step at a time. So I just simplified inside these parentheses, and now I'm going to put that negative 4 over here. Okay, so let's just do that part. So we're going to, now that everything's simplified inside as much as possible, we're going to multiply exponents. Okay, so negative 4 times 1 is negative 1. Remember, don't multiply negative 4 times 2 and get 8. That's not what we want. We want 2 to the negative 4. We're going to have m to the negative 24, because 6 times 4 is negative 24. We're going to have p to the negative 44, and we're going to have q to the negative 20. Okay, so that is this part right here. Okay, let's go in and add the rest of the stuff now. Okay, so in front of that, we should have a 2 to the 1, m to the 7th, p to the negative 6, q to the 4. And we could write the bottom as well. P to the negative 8, q to the negative 4, all to the negative 2 power. Now this is where students are like, okay, I'm going to add this 7 to this negative 24, and then I'm going to do this, I'm going to multiply them. Right? Again, don't try to do too many steps at once, because guaranteed you're going to make a mistake somewhere. And if this is a test scenario, you only get 1 shot, you can't check your answer, you just know that you got it wrong. So what I would do is let's just take care of just the numerator. Okay? Let's not do too many steps at once. Let's find all the numbers. Okay, so add the exponents, that's 2 to the negative 3. Okay, let's find all the m's. There's a 7 and a negative 24. So when we add those together, that's going to be negative 17. We got some p's, so put those together, we're going to get negative 50. And we got some q's. Put those together and we're going to get a negative 16. Okay, on the bottom, p to the negative 8, q to the negative 4, all the negative 2 power. Okay? All right. So I just simplified the numerator, right? One thing at a time. Now let's go down to the, let's do the quotient rule. So here I got p's and I got q's, okay? So we're going to subtract. Now this is going to be a little tricky because we're going to have a negative number minus another negative number. Whenever we do the quotient property, that variable is going to go on the top. So let's kind of keep track of that as we go. So we're not using this power yet. We're just doing the quotient property with the p's and the q's. We're going to need some more paper in just a second, but I think I have a little bit of room left. So I got the 2 to the negative 3. Okay, I got the m to the negative 17. That's not changing. Now I have p's. So what I want to do is negative 50 minus negative 8. Okay, be careful with the double negatives. Negative 50 minus a negative 8 is the same thing as negative 50 plus a positive 8. So negative 50 plus 8 is negative 42. Okay, then we have the q's. Negative 16 minus negative 4. So negative 16 minus negative 4 is the same thing as negative 16 plus 4, which is negative 12. Okay, now notice we have all these negative exponents, right? And it looks like we're going to have to move all of these exponents around. But actually, if all of these are negative and we're going to multiply them by this negative number, they're all actually going to come out positive, which is kind of sweet. So let's apply the next property. Now that everything in the parentheses is simplified, let's multiply all the exponents. Okay, so negative 3 times negative 2 is positive 6. Negative 17 times negative 2 is positive 34. Negative 42 times negative 2 is positive 84. Yep. And then negative 12 times negative 2 is positive 24. All right. Actually, we didn't need another extra piece of paper. This actually worked out okay. So the method that I showed you here, again, the procedure is not the only way to get here, but I think it's the most efficient. So let's finish it out. We got 64, that's 2 to the 6th, m to the 34, p to the 84, q to the 24. Okay, now if we check our answer and we get this wrong, that's okay. We're going to go back and we're going to look at our work. We're going to figure out where we went wrong. Okay, if we keep our steps clean and we show them in an organized way, it's a lot easier to go back and find the error, whether that's you going back or whether that's me going back. Also, sometimes just in the process of writing it out, you can catch those errors. And so this is what we call metacognition. It's thinking about your own thinking. When you're writing it, when you're visualizing it, when you're going back and analyzing it, you're thinking about your own thinking and you're making corrections where you need to. So we hope there's not an error, but let's go back and just check and see if there is. It's a pretty big problem. Okay, 64, okay, check. M to the 34, now this is in a different order, but that's okay. Our m to the 34 power, that's good. We got p to the 84, okay, again, the order is a little bit different, but commutative property says that the order, it doesn't really matter here. And then we got q to the 24. So my order is a little different because I put them in alphabetical order here, and this was, like, I think maybe automatically generated by the program that I used to make this worksheet. But we got it. Okay, so, you know, it took a few minutes, but when we slow it down and we do it step by step, we don't try to race through it, we get the right answer. So if you race through it and you spend, let's say, 5 minutes instead of 8 minutes, and you try to go fast but you make a mistake and you got to go back and fix it again, in the long run it's probably going to take you more time than if you would have just gone slow in the first place. So all you super smart, quick processing people that love to just race through everything, this is a good lesson for you to kind of slow down a little bit, because the rules of the game are changing. The way we're doing math is changing. The nature of the problems that we're going to be doing are changing as we get more and more complex in our math studies. So keeping track of everything step by step, keeping everything organized, going back and analyzing your steps, all important techniques to have. All right, last one. Let's see if we can bust it out quickly. All right, let's add our ones. 2 to the 1. Okay, that's it. Let's go to our 0 exponents. Okay, that's a 1. All right, in our innermost set of parentheses, is there anything that we can simplify? There is not. So the next step is remove the parentheses by applying your power properties. In other words, multiply all those exponents inside by 2. So we got x to the 10th, y to the negative 16th. Let's make sure that looks like a 16. Z to the positive 10. Okay, and then the rest of it. So we got a 2 to the 1, we got a y to the 7th, we got a z to the 6th. All over a y to the negative 6th, and a z to the 7th, and then that is taken to the 8th power. Okay, so notice we got a bunch of stuff on top that we can put together. We can simplify the top here. So we got z's and z's, we got y's and y's. Let's do all that before we do the quotient rule. Because we do have y's and y's here, but let's put these together before we subtract, and let's put the z's together before we subtract. It actually doesn't really matter, but I think it's helpful to get your numerator and your denominator all set up before you do that. All right, so let's look at the numbers. We got just a 2 to the 1. Okay, we got some x's here, but no other x's on top. Okay, we got y's and y's. So if we want to add a 7 and a negative 16, that's going to give us a negative 9. We got z's and z's. When we add the 10 and the 6, we're going to get a 16. So that's using the product property there. Only one property at a time. Okay, now let's use the quotient property. So we got 2 to the, we got y's and y's and z's and z's. So we got a 2 to the 1, that hasn't changed. We got an x to the 10, that hasn't changed, but now we have y's and y's. So we're going to have y, and then the power is going to be negative 9 minus negative 6. So negative 9 minus negative 6 is negative 9 plus 6, which is negative 3. Okay, and then we have these guys, the z's, so we're going to subtract again. 16 minus 7 is 9. And now our parentheses, inside our parentheses is as simple as it's going to get. Because we don't want to take this 8 and start multiplying all of these exponents, right? That would be crazy. Let's do it here. Let's multiply the exponents once it's all simplified inside. That's way, way easier to do. Okay, so assuming we got everything right so far, let's multiply the exponents. So 2 to the 8th power, right, 1 times 8. Now again, not 8 times 2, 8 times 1, which is the power on our 2. Okay, 8 times 10 is 80, so x to the 80, pretty big power there. Y to the negative 3 times 8, so that's y to the negative 24. And then 9 times 8 is 72, so z to the 72. All right, the last, well, there's 2 more steps. I think I'm going to actually combine these, and I think that'll be okay, because it's not too crazy. 2 to the 8th is just a number. It's 256, I believe. Double checking that. Yep, 256. So I got a 256. Okay, I have an x to the 80th. Now the y is the negative power, and so that I'm going to send downstairs to think about what it's done and become positive. And then I have z to the 72. All right, so we actually had room. It got a little cramped, but we did it. We got it all in. Okay, again, one step at a time, one property at a time is going to get you there much more safely, I guess, than if you try to go fast. Okay, let's take a look. 256, got it. X to the 80th, yep. Z to the 72, check. Y to the 24th, we did it. Okay, so go slow, go step by step, go one property at a time. And we did it. We didn't make any mistakes on this one. I'm proud of myself because I often make mistakes, but that's okay. We did it. And if you make a mistake, you can go back and check your work. But I hope that helps, guys. Remember, we have a test coming up on Friday, so being able to do problems like this is going to be important. Now, problems like 9 and 10 are probably a little bit On the more complex side, I don't think we have time for me to give you a problem like number 9 on a test. But if you can get a problem like number 9, then you're in pretty good shape with your properties. So this is a good kind of assessment on how you're doing with those properties and where you're at. Hope that helped, and I'll see you guys back in class, hopefully very soon.